So I was going to thank Bob for that introduction. Let me say, some of you may have been surprised by the nature of that introduction. I was not. You may know him as the distinguished Robert Ross, president of the California Endowment. We who know him know he's just Bobby from the Bronx. And as Manuelito from La Puente, let me just say, Bob, I've got lots of ammunition for when you get your award. I mean, like if anybody ever gives you an award. Now, before moving forward, I want to say that my voice may break. This, you might think, is emotion. It's actually, some of you know me well. For the last couple of years, I've been struggling with a speech disorder. It gets treated once a month with Botox, because that's how we treat everything in Los Angeles. It's not often that an academic is honored for social justice, and it's even rarer for an economist, my profession, to be even in the same neighborhood as social justice, or even lasting values and firm convictions. In fact, some have suggested that if you took all the economists in the world and laid them end to end, they still couldn't reach a conclusion. Others have said if you took all the economists in the world and laid them end to end, it would be a good thing. Well, I'm an economist, but I have reached a conclusion that the level of inequality we now have in the US is corrosive to both our economy and our democracy, that the level of racial anxiety that some feel about our changing demography is misplaced and diminishes our collective will for public investment, and that our disconnection by race and income, by geography and generation, is preventing us from seeing and forging our common national future. Now, this national crisis of inequality and disconnection sounds like Los Angeles 20 years ago, a city on the edge, racked by widening income divides, growing racial tensions, and increasingly fragmented neighborhoods. The response then was civil unrest. And the very shock of that forced progressives to question, if people were upset enough to burn down their own city, why had we not been able to channel that rage into social change? It was in that context that Liberty Hill doubled down on its investments in social movement organizations, working on issues ranging from environmental justice to living wages to equitable mass transit. The common thread of these groups, a commitment to a grassroots base and to a strategy of turning anger into action, division into unity, distress into strategy. And it was in that context that I found my footing and my passion. I'd already been active, working with organizers to raise the minimum wage in the state of California, partnering with Mark Ridley Thomas, Stuart Coe, and many others to try to forge a bottoms-up, multi-ethnic vision for economic development. But in the wake of the unrest and the rethinking that followed, I found myself joining the founding board of the Los Angeles Alliance for New Economy, documenting disparities for communities for a better environment, gauging a contribution of immigrants for Chirla, and speaking on Black-Brown Unity for Scope, Community Coalition, and many others. In short, I found my place and my purpose in this amazing social movement ecosystem that has sprung up in LA. Along the way, I've discovered that while I embrace rigorous research, basically, I'm a nerd for social justice. I have never seen a multivariate regression I do not like. But what I really am is a translator, from the wisdom of our activists to those civic leaders and agency folks making policy, from the jargon of the academy to the common sense of community, from neighborhoods that are often under strain to the funders that should support them in their efforts for social change. Indeed, the real winners of this award are those that have been my muse, the movement builders of Los Angeles. Now that said, I'll still take the award. Not because of any side payment, because indeed, as some of you know, shortly after telling you that you've won an award, Liberty Hill informs you that you're supposed to sell a lot of tables. No, the real reason to accept this award is because it allows me to thank those who inspire me, these amazing organizers in LA, those who support me, the stellar staff and colleagues I have at USC's Program for Environmental and Regional Equity. It's a group that's small but mighty. And those who sustain me, like my wonderful children, and most of all, my wife, Betsy Hamilton. As we tell our friends, we've been married now 30 years, many of them happily. And we have learned from the hard times as well as the good times to love more deeply and resolutely, to become as kind, forgiving, and open-hearted as you hope others will be, and to always have faith that things will get better. It's not a bad metaphor for what we need now in these hard times in America. This Tea Party craziness shall pass. Now, it might pass more like a gallstone than a common cold. But the history of America is a story of the struggle to find our better selves, to right the wrongs of our bloody history, to make a more perfect union, often with the help of unions. I'm getting this award on a special day. It's 3 days before the anniversary of the death of my father 2 years ago. He was 95 years old when he passed. And I've been thinking about how proud he might be tonight. Actually, he'd probably be prouder if I turned out to be a plumber, a job that's both higher pay and more useful than being a professor, despite what Bob Ross says. But my dad would be proud nonetheless. And as I was thinking, I was reminded of when 5 years earlier, my mother took gravely ill. And worried about what my dad would do when I was living out of town, when he was gone, I kept suggesting to him that he should really have somebody come by and take care of him, help him out, particularly as it seemed likely that my mother would pass. He didn't want to talk about it. Who would? But I kept pestering. Finally, on the day of my mother's funeral, as I was driving him back from the cemetery, I asked him again, with my wife and daughter in the back seat, "Dad, why don't you have somebody come to help you out?" He turned to me, 90 years old at the time, and said, "I want to try it on my own for a while. I want to see what my potential is." Los Angeles, let's see what our potential is. We have the world's most diverse city, the most vibrant social movements, the most progressive local philanthropy. We have taken a city from the ashes of unrest to the aspirations for justice, from despair and division to change, not charity. And we can do so much more to tackle the challenges of poverty, dislocation, and inequity that continue to plague our landscape both here and nationally. So thanks for the honor. Really and seriously, this is the highest honor I've ever received. And let's celebrate tonight and get back to work tomorrow. Another world is possible, but it will require all of our spirit, determination, love, and yes, solid social science research to get there. Thank you very much.